So what I do, I draw. There are lots of different ways I draw, but when I'm drawing with charcoal, these days I tend to cover the whole paper with charcoal to begin with, and then lift out the highlights, hitting the face. In this case, I'm working on Beulah's face. So I use an eraser a lot when I draw. I really think of the eraser as one of the tools of drawing. Usually, the things that I like best seem to sort of emerge slowly in the process of looking at the thing and contemplating it, and just kind of moving the charcoal or the eraser around, as the case may be. There are several things I do to try to help me get inside the drawing. That's what it feels like. I have to enter into it, and then you enter into it, and something emerges from that process. If I'm outside of it trying to make something happen, something might happen, but it's just going to be kind of stiff, and it might be technically nice, but it's not going to be real. You go into working on a drawing with the idea that now I'm going to work on a drawing and make this drawing work. It's a totally different state of mind, and it's not satisfying to me, and nothing really good comes of it, except, maybe a nice drawing, but the world is filled with nice drawings already. If I'm working on something and it's just a big blob, that's encouraging to me, because that means I'm working from this intuitive part of my brain. I'm just following my intuition around. If you can recognize every detail from the very beginning, then for me, that probably means I'm working from a more analytical part of myself, which is what, for the purpose of drawing, I'm trying to get out of. Imagine I'm a blind person, and so I can't see with my eyes, but the way I see is with my fingertips, and so I'm a blind person, and there's somebody I love, maybe, or somebody I just want to know better. In my mind, my hand is just moving over that face, and wherever the lines go over the face, wherever her wrinkles are, or her brow, or whatever lines I see, I just follow them. But instead of running my hand over her face, I'm running my hand over the paper. When I look at art, the art that I love best that I respond to most powerfully is the art of the cave painters 30,000 years ago. And that's how I want to paint. But I don't want to be them. I'm not them, obviously. I'm a 21st century, more or less, American. I think about what their relationship with the world around them must have been. But when you look at those cave paintings and the artwork of that time, you know, that's us. You know, you could talk to that person through drawings. You know, we could make ourselves understood with them. That's us. You can tell. And you can tell in the sensitivity of those drawings and that they were so closely observing the world around them, and that they had a certain kind of relationship with it. So this is a place that I come a lot. Near where I live, these woods and this pond, and especially the last few years, I've spent a lot of time out here. At periods every day I would come out, often with my sketchbook, and sometimes just out to be, this is my place to be outside and to be out in the woods. I've had a lot of wonderful encounters with various creatures out here. And one of the things I like about this place is it's you know, it's kind of off the beaten track, and it's kind of a nondescript little woods, but it's my place. You know, it's not a dramatic vista kind of place. It's just woods and a pond and some marshy land, and so I often think of painting this place and doing portraits of the place, but when I've been having a hard time doing those paintings, the portraits I have in mind to do of this place, because I don't want to just paint another picture of a pond and trees and woods, and I want it to be like those drawings that I was describing before of, you know, you use the act of painting or drawing to get to know that place better. And so I'm just really trying to figure out how to do that. I want my art, the doing of my art, to be a way for me to get to know that thing better and to honor it in some way, rather than using that thing as a source of paintings for me. Don't try to make a drawing, but just forget about that completely. Don't try to make a drawing. Just look at this thing, whatever it is, a person, you know, a plant, whatever it is. Look at it really closely and let yourself kind of fall in love with it and start noticing certain particular things about it that are just fascinating to you, and follow that response. And then if you do that, then a drawing will happen in the process of that. It will happen if you're there with it. that my job is to try to bring myself to the thing and bring my whole self to the thing. And I can't be back here trying to manipulate it. I have to fall in love with it and follow where that goes. And that's my job. And if I do that, then beautiful things will follow from that. I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, where my family moved when I was 9 years old from North Carolina, where the family roots are. I had a year abroad in England. My senior year in college, I eventually went to get a master's degree. Lived in Boston for a year, and when I was there, made plans to go to China. I went the summer of 1987 when I was 25 years old, and I was teaching English literature and American literature and composition. I wanted to live in a very different culture, far away from the culture I was brought up in, to see what I would learn from doing that. You know, to be around other people who were different from me, different culture, you know, but to look at these people and to contemplate them. I learned that there was something in us that wants to, the way in my mind it's like this, like I imagine a bell ringing, and a huge bell that's setting a deep tone, and there's something in us that wants to live in harmony with that. And we know if we're not doing that, you know, even if, you know, at some level in us, whatever we might be conscious of, at some level we know that, and some part of us wants to just to live in harmony with that tone. And when I'm continually coming back to drawing and painting people's faces, as I'm doing that, you know, there's something in me, you know, below the articulate part of me. I'm wondering, what is it in us that is this, what is it that makes us human? What is it in us that wants to, that needs to resonate with that tone, you know, that yearns to live that life? But I want my painting to be a way for me to ask those questions. That's the point of it. And if it becomes a way for me to support myself, then I've totally missed the point, you know. And when I come, you know, I turned 50 this year, and I was in my early 30s when I started painting, and it's been a much slower process than I imagined, which I now understand in retrospect. That's just how that is. But you know, when I come to the end of my life, I don't want to look back and say, well, gosh, I sold a lot of paintings. You know, that's not why I started painting. when I first started painting and thinking, you know what I really want to paint are faces. But gosh, I live out here in the gorge, nobody's going to buy faces. People want landscapes of the gorge. That's that's what people will buy at the local gallery. But I'm going to paint faces because that's what I really love. And much to my surprise, people responded to those. I paint in lots of different ways. I mean, I do watercolor in with lots of different approaches. Generally, trying to find ways to bypass my own self-consciousness, and so that I'm not trying to manipulate it too much, but just trying to, you know, respond to whatever it is and see what happens. But I used to do very careful drawings, which I would then very carefully paint. But more recently, again, as a way of just trying to break out of my self-consciousness, I would just start painting. It's a watercolor, so you start with water, and it's fun, you know, it's fun and it's satisfying just to put the paint on the paper in the water and see what happens, and then start pushing it around. And while I'm looking at the drawing there, which is a drawing from life, charcoal drawing, which I like. So, but first, and I'm not trying to copy this drawing, I'm just kind of using it as a starting point, just kind of looking at it. As when I was doing the drawing, I wasn't trying to copy the person, I was just noticing the shapes and the lines of the drawing, and just kind of, not exactly mimicking them even, but just following them when I'm painting. The best things happen if I get lost in that face. If I get lost in it, I just sort of notice the shapes and the patterns, get lost in that, and I'm just responding to it. And then I notice that the shapes and patterns are starting to emerge here, and I get lost in that, and I just play with it. That's when good things happen. My real revelations early years, when my first year or so of painting, was that I would have these very carefully constructed drawings that I was then carefully painting, and it was okay, but they were kind of dead. But in the palette, where I was just letting paint, I was just pushing paint around and letting it sit there, things by accident would meet, and the most beautiful things were happening on the palette that were much nicer than what was happening in my painting, you know. That was really a moment for me to realize that's what I want, because that's alive. One of the things about watercolor too is that you can't really rush it. I mean, if you rush it, it becomes a different thing. Because the pigment just slowly, settles into the paper and the water slowly evaporates. And while those things are happening, that's when the different pigments mix together and create these beautiful textures and relationships. And if you try to rush that, then those things won't happen. One of the things that's really important to me is that I'm just following the lines that are on the face. I'm not trying to follow the shape of an eye and then the nose and then the mouth, but there are other lines going around the face. One thing that I have noticed, this is not always true, but very often while I'm working it's just a big blob like this. And then at a certain point it kind of comes together, and then it really then it has a life to it. But if you're carefully constructing it all the way along, then it never really has that life to it. It's always a carefully constructed artifact. I spent a lot of time in these woods and in this little corner of the planet over these years learning to paint. It's not what I envisioned when I started all those years ago. I thought it would be, I look back on this now, but I really thought at the time it was going to be, I said to myself, I'm going to give myself 6 months. No, that's unrealistic. I'm going to give myself a year to learn how to paint and see if I can support myself doing that. On my bad days, I think, oh my God, I've invested so much time and life in this. I feel afraid that I have sort of gone into this corner and I can't get out. And I've learned a lot from these years, but if I can't find my way to bring that back out to the world in some way, then what will be the point of it? And on my better days, I feel, what I like to think and hope is true is that I've been planting some roots and some seeds here and learning something, and that now after 17 years, it could start to come to fruition in some way. I have such a fondness, a love for this community that's been so supportive of me, and I want, so I think about that a lot too. I want to find a way to return some of that, and through, painting, writing, teaching, sharing something of what I have received so much over these years. I want to find a way to share that back, but especially with this little town. What I would want somebody who has one of my paintings to feel rising up within them, this deep sense of, oh my God, I'm a human being. What am I going to do about that? Just that, That's what art should do for me. That's what I want. That's the art I respond to, whether it's in writing or visual arts or whatever. That's what I respond to. And when I come to the end of my life, I want to look back and be able to say that that I asked those questions that I needed to ask, and that I followed them where they took me.